What's up, Carey and KD?
Hello,
Hi.
how you doing?
I'm good. Look at you. You got a whole song happening in your head, huh?
Always, always.
You just rock. You're like, hey. So the one thing I want to know from y'all more than anything else, there's that scene in the film where after everything is popped off, um, Kunle is on the ground in cuffs, but the other kids are sitting on the curb. And y'all didn't have Kunle get shot. I want to know why you made that decision, because it was an easy decision to make to have him shot as opposed to not having him shot in those circumstances, because it's something that we see all the time. You know what I'm saying? And
Right.
I'll start with Carey first.
Well, for me, I mean, it was, I wanted to see the loss of innocence that was happening in that moment as he watched the other kids on the curb and he's on the ground. And that realization that he's different was very important for the story overall as a whole.
Yeah, I think that's something we talked about really early on, that we wanted to tell a story about those incidents that never make the news. You know, the kind of horror of it as you're walking away from the movie is how often does this sort of thing happen that merely traumatizes people and doesn't, it doesn't take you actually, getting killed to instill that trauma, especially when these things start happening to young people. Yeah, so that was something that was important to both of us. My family is Mexican American. I'm from Los Angeles, and yeah, it's something that young men start getting exposed to when you're a teenager. Essentially, you start getting looked at like you're perceived as
A threat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, and I'm sorry, I can't let Kunle get shot in my movie.
Yeah.
I love him too much.
Yeah.
Listen,
I loved Kunle too.
Yeah,
So I was like, let me tell you something. I watched that movie holding my breath. I was like this the whole entire time, because I was seeing things that were familiar in my life. I've been pulled over by the police in a park at night by myself.
Mhm.
So, I was like, oh Lord. And then you added the whole Goldilocks and the Three Bears situation. Was like, y'all were giving me a modern day version of Goldilocks and the Three Bears, and I was there for all of it. I really was.
I love it.
Talk to me about shooting those car scenes, because 3/4 of this film is shot in a car.
It was tough for me because it was done. We couldn't shoot actually on location. We had to shoot on a stage, and we actually had to kind of block shoot it. So the challenge was, we would have to shoot Kunle's side, all the different scenes on him. So we were jumping in emotional beats from beginning, middle to end sort of thing. So that was challenging to keep tracking, like, okay, at this point you're supposed to be in this place emotionally, get all of his stuff right, and then turn around and do Sean's stuff, and so on and so forth. So that was a bit of a challenge, but the actors, I think, really bonded because they were in the car so much. So in these close quarters, they're just like trying to, make each other laugh, like having a good time. Like it got hot and funky in there, and they would laugh about that. So, we did what we made it work. But for me as a director, I was like, oh man, I just wish we could like shoot in like more of a traditional sense, but time didn't permit, and logistics didn't permit.
Katie, in writing the script, there was that line where you said, where you talk about white folks using the N-word is the only rule that we ask of them, and they don't want to follow it because they don't like it. I want to know what inspired you to write that particular line of dialogue. I mean, it's true, but I just want to know.
I think that was a conversation that we had very early on in the script writing process. So I had read an article about so that situation with like professors saying the N-word in class in an isolated academic context happened both at my undergrad and my grad school. Like it just kept happening. And so we kind of talked about it, and I think that scene kind of came out of our conversation about it, and just like the things that we were talking about, just like surrounding the national conversation and surrounding just our personal conversations. Just, yeah, that's kind of where the lines came from, and a lot of stuff came from just us talking about the state of the world. So, and that really is a reality. And I mean, the reason we wanted to include that scene was that, it shows that these guys, like, even though you're trying to just be in class and you're still going to be everyone turning around and looking at you, is that thing that happens all the time for, people of color in schools. And like, I'm Latina, but I'm obviously pale and like white passing. So like, it's a weird situation where, people will say certain things in front of you that they wouldn't say in front of you if you were, darker skin. So I don't know. It's like the movie's about perception in a lot of ways, and like how the way that the world around you perceives you just plays into how you have to navigate the world around you. And yeah, I mean, it's that's where the comedy and the drama of the movie come from. So,
and I the thing I love about that scene with them, walking and talking about this, it just further illustrates their differences of worldview and revealing their character early on around like such a kind of incendiary topic, like, so it's revealing that character in an interesting way, and you're like, wow, they're just discussing the N-word, but we understand why, because it was just thrust upon them in this classroom, which was a very seemingly triggering scene to open up the movie on. So I thought it was great, in a character perspective to have them discuss that, and Kunle defend it, or whatever, and Sean being like, what is wrong with you, man? Like, so
I love this film and it messed me up in the best possible way. Thank you so much for your time this morning. I appreciate it. I'll see y'all tonight.
all right.
All right.